I think that we're ready to go with our next panelist. He happens to have a $5.1 billion lawsuit hanging over his head, and we're going to figure out why. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Mike Lynch of Invoke Capital and our moderator, Frederic Lardinois. My mic again. Actually, I was told to make an announcement, a second announcement. There's a quick story I have to tell you. There's this woman, her name's Leslie, and she's a hero because she brought in 1,000 blankets into this place. Okay, so if you are cold, don't be ashamed. Yeah, honestly, round of applause. And she's one of yours. She moved here. So now she's one of yours, and she's come to save the day. There are blankets in the session hall, and she wants you to use them because there are 1,000 of them. There's one for everyone. So please, if you need a blanket, go get one. It's not embarrassing. We can all snuggle together. You guys go. Do your thing.
We're here, and the mics are working, and it's warm up here. What more do we need?
Yep.
Thank you for being here. Let's jump right in. You founded Autonomy in 1996. And it became pretty much the biggest UK tech company within about 15 years or so. Then you sold it to HP for $11 billion. That's, by any measure, a big sell. But things didn't go so well after that. You were fired the year after, 2012. HP wrote down almost $9 billion of those $11 billion. And you're suing each other back and forth ever since, really. It's still ongoing. What's the status right now of those lawsuits and this whole affair?
In the true world of lawyers, they're still going on, so they'll carry on. But it was a sad thing to happen in the end because obviously that was a business that I started in 1996. Funnily enough, Ned Desmond here at TechCrunch was one of the first people to spot us and do a piece in the US back in '97. And then the company grew up, and the UK model is there's no way of stopping a takeover. There's no poison pill like in the US. So when Hewlett-Packard came along and wanted to make its offer, we couldn't stop them. But actually, the people that were doing it at the time, which was Leo and Shane, his head of strategy, they had an amazing strategy, which was what they wanted to do was take the company, refocus it into this new age of big data and software and machine intelligence. And that was exciting, and we got convinced by them.
Because that was exactly what you were doing at the time.
And, and we could see the future was that way. The problem was a week after the deal, they get fired in one of the sort of, continual coup d'etats there, and we're left with the hardware group who, they used to call us the stepchild.
That's the takeover of Mac Whitman of HP.
And then, the problem is that all the understanding of, high growth, clever software people wasn't there, and the people left. And, it's sad in one way because it was many years, and I spent a lot of years working on it, but those people have gone off. They've all started businesses, they're doing new things, and, it's kind of fertilized the European tech scene. And, I just watch all the stuff they're doing now. I've got about 60 of the people from Autonomy that work with me in Invoke, and we raised $1 billion, and now we go out and we invest in European tech. We put in the money, but we also have these 60 people that can kind of help with the sort of things that need to be done.
Right. While you're doing that, though, you still have a massive lawsuit hanging over your head here in London right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? They're suing you for billions.
And I'm suing them. So
yeah, well.
The reality, luckily, is that stuff doesn't take much time because, the facts are there. If one day it will get to court, that's fine, it will be dealt with. So what we do is we get on with it. So, we raised our $1 billion, and what we're doing is taking bright ideas from bright people and turning them into impact and reality. We've done a series of investments. Probably the most well-known one is Darktrace. That's about 2.5 years old, and that's gone from 0 to 500 million. That's growing exponentially. We've got others in the genetic space. Now, you might think, why genetics? But it's actually using machine learning algorithms with genetics data. We've got one which, talking about the lawyers, is very relevant, which is using artificial intelligence to replace some of the menial tasks with law firms.
One
And
of
then
those,
we're
one of
very
those
interested-
tasks is
yeah,
dealing
it's,
with M&A, which
Well,
did that come
I thought they'd be dead
naturally
against
to
it.
you, or is that? What,
Well, I thought they'd be dead against it because historically the lawyers have been very pushed back on technology, but I think they've realized that the time has come because of the amount of information. And then we also like the mixed reality space a lot, so we're doing a lot there. And the idea there is to say that when you bring the real world and the virtual or digital world together, the touch points need to be much more complex than they are now, where you tend to go through a device. So all those Internet of Things objects need to understand what's going on around them. They need to be able to recognize sounds and what they're seeing. And then in the mixed reality world, you need to be able to, I don't know, have a non-existent dinosaur scampering around, but throw a real ball. And how do you make the physics of all that work together? So we've got a very interesting set of projects in that sort of area. But you know, we're open to anything that's got some clever piece of tech and can be big.
let me take one step back there, though. You've raised $1 billion for your investment firm. That came just after everything went down at HP. Was it hard at that point to raise that $1 billion? What was it like going out with all of that happening at the same time?
Well, the kind of people that give you $1 billion can read financial statements. And the thing about the HP thing is not only did they own it for a year before they cried foul, but there's no dispute about the amount of cash that the business made. And basically, if something's wrong in a business, people don't pay you. Whereas if people are paying you hundreds of millions of dollars in cash, then that gives a bound to what's going on. So the kind of investors that we deal with were very easily able to do that kind of analysis and work out that there was a lot of spin and bullshit going on here.
Now at Invoke, you're taking a pretty interesting approach to your investments. You've raised that $1 billion. How much of that have you invested so far?
We've done probably about 60, 70 million so far.
Right, so that's since 2013,
Yeah.
right? So that's not a lot of money. You still have a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah,
Why are you
the
taking
model is
that
very
approach?
different though, in that we look at the venture capital industry and we don't understand why it's organized the way it is. So for example, you have angel, you have VC, you may have MES, and then you might have private equity. It doesn't make any sense from the point of view of a tech business, because what you don't want to be doing is investing a great idea and then another round comes along and you can't participate in that.
Right.
So the first thing that we decided was we always wanted to have enough money to actually go all the way through the idea. The second thing that doesn't make sense to us is, why does it have to be organic? So the VC world has this sort of obsession with organic growth, but if we find someone that has an amazing piece of technology, once we know that that works and customers love it and it's the right way, do you then spend 10 years building a sales force? Or do you go and buy for $1 billion the existing player who's number 4 in that market and got all the customers and everything, and put the technology in and reverse it into the vehicle? So it's really about using capital in a way which maximizes it when you have a true technology advantage. And what we say is we only want to invest in things that have an unfair technology advantage. And then once you have that, then the capital should follow that, none of these sort of strange ideas that you have at the moment.
What would be an unfair technology advantage?
Oh, you want to see something that either can solve a problem that hasn't been solved before. So in the areas, for example, of machine learning now, you're seeing applications where it was either a person did it or now the machine can do it. That's a big step forward. Or where you're seeing something where it can be done at literally a tenth of the cost. So you want to see an order of magnitude difference. And what that means is that if we take that example of reversing a large existing player, you may have some area and you've got a big player in the market and their product's basically the same as everyone else's. All they do with all that marketing, it's the same. And so they're selling it on price and they're throwing in free features. And so the margin on those businesses is very small. If you suddenly turn up a product that is literally 10 times better, you no longer have to sell on price, and you no longer have to give away stuff. And that means those margins open up, and that really rewrites the situation. So you're looking for those game-changing, disruptive things that can happen.
How are the companies you've been investing in then game-changing? What are the things that make them stand out so much from? Or why did you invest in them to begin with, I guess?
Well, the interesting one, so for example, if you take Darktrace, the cybersecurity world has been obsessed about the boundary. So it's the old idea that if you have a castle, you build a wall. Well, you know, you can see how that works. So if you go to Tuscany, you've got these beautiful old hill towns, and they've got a wall, but they're beautiful old hill towns. You go to modern Milan, the wall has got big holes in it. And so the reality in cybersecurity is any idea of keeping stuff out is a non-starter. And then the second thing is the idea that you're going to know what to look for in cybersecurity, that people aren't going to get clever enough to write self-writing zero-day attacks. So it leads you, obviously, that the solution has to be something which is inside and is learned. And so we were very, very interested in technologies that could do that, could be everywhere in a company, and could actually learn what was going on. And we think that's a game changer, but it's a game changer where you have to accept the fight at the boundary is gone, the walls have been breached. So we like that one a lot. Another example we saw was in genetic testing for cancer, where there's a lot of technologies out there that will sequence DNA, but the accuracy is too low to use in a clinical environment. You can use them for research. Well, these guys use machine learning, and they got the accuracy very, very high so that you could use it for an individual patient. Right. And again, that's a game-changing technology. So.
Still, you've only made those 4 investments. How are you going to scale up this model, which is, if I understand it right, really hands-on?
Now, we're getting up towards 10 investments now, actually.
Are you making those
but that's
5?
actually the constraint. One of the advantages we bring is that if you've got a great idea and you've got a great product, why should you have to recreate how to do a customer service desk or how to run sales ops? So we have the people that do that for you. But what that means is that we're not going to be doing 40 investments. 10 is about what we like to do. Okay. But the goal is to take those 10 and the ones of them that work, and we would expect to have a much higher hit rate because of the input, take those to be very big businesses.
You haven't had any exits yet, have you?
Sorry?
You haven't had any exits yet?
No, we haven't, but we've only been doing it for 3 years, and
fair enough.
we have actually had a situation where we brought in co-investors. So, for example, at the 500 million level, we brought in KKR and SoftBank, and we brought in Summit as well. So we like our ideas being validated by having some other people to talk to about them.
When you get to the exit, is there something you learned from your own experience that you're going to teach these startups?
Well, there's a whole series of things. So, it's a question of, the first thing is, when you sell a business, it is sold. And so, even if you have a great relationship with the people buying it and they share your vision, they may not be there a little bit later. So you kind of have to very consciously make that decision that you are selling. And from that point, that's the end line. The other thing I think is just cultural, though. Probably what one should do is really think about risk and return. If you're running a large tech business, you can't do it these days by layoffs, selling off bits, and down. That is about managing death, okay? And if you're not going to manage death, you've got to make decisions. You've got to spot trends, and you've got to place a bet. And for a suit manager, a corporate manager, that's big risk, because you make a bet, you might be wrong. But you've got to do that in technology. Apple sees something, it made a bet. Google makes a bet. Amazon makes a bet. If you don't do that, you're going to miss cloud, you're going to miss smartphones. So the one thing I would say is if I was looking for a good home for a business and it was being acquired, I'd really want it to go to the kind of business where the management actually have vision and make bets. I don't mind if they're wrong, but that's much better than just trying to manage something by cutting cost base and all that sort of stuff.
It's the big bet you're making on machine learning then? it's pretty much all your investments focus more, have something to do with machine learning.
I wouldn't say the bet's on machine learning, in that my background is machine learning. So, yeah.
You feel
Back in
confident,
the
is that what you're
80s.
saying?
The bets are much more on understanding where the world is going to change. So, for example, there's a very good counter-argument to our legal investment. You know, the lawyers have been probably the most resistant to change profession. So what we are doing is taking a bet that now is the time where they're forced to change. And that looks like it's going to work out to be true, but that timing is very, very difficult to pull off in these things. So, and certainly the whole mixed reality thing, we're very strongly betting on mixed reality. And we think that again, you know, it's a vision, it's a bet, we don't know, and we sit here in 5 years' time with any answer.
So we should expect some investments in the mixed reality space from you?
Yeah, we think this whole idea of the digital and physical world becoming seamlessly blended is likely to happen, but we think it's a lot more complex than the ideas that people are putting forward at the moment, because the digital world has to understand the physical world. So, you know, what you can't do is have someone going around and sort of programming a glass of water, because there's too many objects in the world. But what you have got to do is somehow the system's got to understand what a glass of water does by knocking one over. And then it understands that's a glass, and there's this thing that is a liquid, and the liquid does this kind of stuff. And in that way, suddenly the whole world can be authored into the digital part. And then you can start mixing things. You know, as I said, you can have a virtual dinosaur chasing a real ball, or a real dog, and you throw a ball for it, and it's got some headset on.
Or a robot dog.
Yeah, and you know, it's so the possibilities, if you start to make the world interchangeable. But you've got some big technology issues, because, for example, not only do you have to understand the scene, you know, what is in a plane, what's the 3D scene, but what the objects are and what their properties are. And again, the big step forward here is that has to self-author. If you're relying on everyone setting all that up, then it's never going to happen.
One thing I noticed, we've talked about the technologies, and when I talk to Silicon Valley investors, all they want to talk about is the team that's building those technologies. What's your approach to the team when you're looking at investing?
Well, we're a little bit different in Europe, because, first of all, I think it's much harder to do a business out of Europe that isn't got an unfair advantage. You know, for example, the market size is, in effect, smaller. So, you know, we would be less likely to do an investment in a new social media play, or even an e-commerce market space for us. It's just not something we would know about. So we generally, the first bit, the magic bit, is the deep tech. And then after that, the model we have is about having access to people who bring skills. So if you're a brilliant, you know, 23-year-old programmer, and you've created something, why do we want to waste you on working out how to run the customer service desk? I've got some great people that know how to do that. So it is round the other way here for us. The model is not so much about, we can put people together. There is one constraint, though, which is entrepreneurs tend to be very decisive and know what they want. But this model only works if, as well as being decisive and knowing what they want, they listen.
So you need a meek entrepreneur?
Sorry, what's that?
What are you looking for in the entrepreneur then?
Well, you want that desire to completely change the world. You know, you want them to be on a mission. But no matter how forceful, strong, and decisive they seem, you've got to know that they will listen. Because I have made so many mistakes, and I would like the entrepreneurs that we invest in to make new and novel ones, not the same ones.
Let's maybe talk about those mistakes for a moment, because we were talking about machine learning earlier on. And most of the startups I talk to now do something around machine learning, or trying to do something. You've worked with a few now. What are they getting wrong when they look at machine learning?
Well, the first thing to say about machine learning is it's appearing in every pitch at the moment, and it's kind of become a marketing term. And you have to be slightly careful about that, because machine learning is not a technology you can just go and get a library piece of code out of a book. So one of the very interesting examples I see a lot is if you've come from a world of rigorous programming, then people will do things like, in order to train the machine learning, they'll create a very clean training set where they'll take out all the useless examples. That is completely the wrong thing to do.
All right.
Because what these technologies are about is about learning the variation of the real world and the noise and the problems and everything like that. So you've kind of got to get yourself into a different mindset, which is all that chaos of the real world. That's why these machine learning algorithms are good, because they learn that. They learn how to handle slang in text. They learn how to handle, low winter sun in a visual situation. They know how to handle background noise. But they only do that if you give them the real world. And what it comes down to is a big philosophical change. And Chris Bishop at Microsoft has a lovely way of putting this. He says, we all now have to embrace uncertainty. It's not about having certainty by having defined everything. It's about knowing how to juggle probabilities. And that's a different way of thinking.
All right, there's only one certainty here, and that's the clock running out. But I've got one last question for you that kept me from sleeping the last couple of days. I read in a couple of articles that you've got a nice estate.
Did I, sorry?
You've got a quite nice estate, and you do like to go hunting. Is that right?
Sorry, I can't.
You do like to hunt?
No, I don't hunt at all.
So people were lying in those articles? Because I read a story about rabbits.
No, actually exactly the opposite. I conserve rare breeds.
All right.
So basically, I look after rare breed animals that are no longer economically viable. So I have, for example, Suffolk Red Poll, which was the most common cow, very nice cow, up until the 1940s, and then became uneconomic when modern Franken cow came along. And I have old sheep, and then I have medieval pigs that actually live out in the woods. So
that's a false
no,
news
I'd rather
story.
leave the things alive than
That's a false news story right there.
Where did you get that from?
The Telegraph, I think.
I don't know the story.
All right,
no,
I'll show it to you afterwards.
I can assure you, I like foxes. They are my friends.
All right, good. I can sleep soundly now. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Thank
That's
you.
random.